Hey
This
everyone.
conference will now be recorded.
Hey everyone. Craig Regelbrugge here with AmericanHort, wishing VNLA a very happy 2021. I know it seemed like we'd never get here, but we finally did. I especially want to thank the officers and the board of directors, and also just always Shelley Archer, and in certainly the last couple of years, Shauna Anchors, with whom we've had sort of the most day-to-day interaction and collaboration working to move the industry forward. So very, very grateful for the continued relationship. We can say for the first time that 2020 is hindsight instead of hindsight is 2020. Fortunately, now we can say 2020 is hindsight. Still, we have to look back just a little bit. It's been an extraordinary year that just came to an end. And just on a couple of high notes, I know we got started back at the Mance show expecting a pretty decent year, and shortly thereafter, the pandemic began to bear down. And by the middle or latter part of March, we were extremely concerned about business disruptions, about the supply chain seizing up, about various industry channels not being able to operate, and so forth and so on. AmericanHort was a national leader in an effort, and obviously we partnered very closely with VNLA and other state organizations to try to equip people with the knowledge and the arguments to work to keep businesses able to operate. And we won a whole lot more battles than we lost. It was rough in a few places, particularly up in parts of the Northeast and Great Lakes, but for the most part, the supply chain functioned pretty well. And then obviously, by the time we got to May, things really began to open up. And by the time we got into June, most folks were having a really, really strong year, and that strong year continued through the summer and even into the fall, largely due to the fact that consumers staying at home decided to get out and spend money in our industry, improve their surroundings, and we are obviously all hoping that that energy is going to sustain. A couple of major successes that we had over the year bear mentioning too. One of them, in the context of the pandemic relief and response, we really mobilized to help folks understand all the new acronyms, FFCRA, PPP, and to be able to lean in and figure out how to make the most of those programs. And obviously that will be ongoing in this new year as well. Secondly, when USDA got into the action with the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, the big challenge for us is, will we be included? Will our producers who have had significant impacts, particularly early on in the pandemic, will they have access? And fortunately, we ultimately succeeded. It was a full court press using all the tools, the advocacy tools that we have available, but ultimately in August, the industry was made eligible to apply for CFAP related relief. And then in September, when the CFAP 2 program came out and closed up December 11, if I recall right, our folks were completely eligible, which was fantastic. One other huge success we had during the course of the year, we've been working for several years to bring about clarity to the definition of agriculture and to make sure that nursery and greenhouse horticulture is included as an agricultural commodity for trucking regulation purposes, and particularly the hours of service regulations. It's been a multi-year effort. We've been working both on legislation and in the regulatory arena, and fortunately, a final rule that came out late in the year from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration fully embraced that horticulture is indeed agriculture, something that we fight hard to preserve. But we won that battle, including Christmas trees and basically all aspects of production horticulture. So, the big deal with that, as my colleague Tal Coley will remind everybody, is that drive time and loading time and everything else spent within 150 air miles of the place of production is exempt from the hours of service, counting in essence. So very, very positive thing. Looking ahead, I mean, politically, we could go on and on. I won't in the interest of time, but just want to mention it is now, as I'm recording this, it's the 4th of January, and we still don't know which party will control the United States Senate. We've got obviously the runoff races in Georgia coming up tomorrow, although I don't think the dust will settle on those for days and possibly even weeks. They are likely to be very contentious and very close. It's really unprecedented, folks. If you pay any attention to politics, it's simply unprecedented that we have 2 Senate seats up in one state in the same year. That's odd enough, but the fact that those 2 Senate seats will determine control of the United States Senate. I know most in the industry probably believe that divided government provides some checks and balances and view this race accordingly. That's not a universal view, but I think it's probably widespread. But I think regardless of the outcome, the margins of control, both in the House and the Senate this go around, are so narrow that it is going to tamp down on sort of legislative extremism. I mean, there may be a lot of extreme bills out there, but stuff that can actually become law is going to be closer to the middle. It's going to require bipartisan coalitions to get it done. I also, despite the drama we're living through by the moment, fully expect that President-elect Joe Biden will be inaugurated in a relatively few short days. And as his administration takes shape, his cabinet picks and so forth, there is a huge premium being placed on experience, whether you like the folks or not, whether you agree with them on policy or not. Huge premium on experience. The team he's assembling, they've been around the block a few times and then some. And so, I mean, I do think the positive there is that the team should be able to hit the ground running pretty coherently. And given the significant challenges that we're living through, on one hand, optimism about vaccines, but on the other hand, a Herculean effort to get vaccines deployed very, very rapidly to a lot of Americans so that life can begin to return to normal. I think that that'll be obviously job number one for the incoming administration. I think beyond that, you know, we're going to find, again, the limits on what can be done legislatively, regardless of which party ends up controlling the Senate. And so I do expect we'll see a lot of activism, if you will, activity, perhaps more appropriately, that's done in the executive branch, whether through executive orders and other actions by the president and or rulemaking in the agencies. Frankly speaking, that's how President Trump accomplished a lot of what he accomplished, whether any of us like some of the things that they did or not. A lot of it was done through executive actions, and things that were done through executive action are more easily undone through executive action. So there is that. As we look forward on the legislative front and some of our key issues, labor, obviously, we're in a storm on labor. There have been late efforts in the Trump administration to help improve the sort of cost picture associated with H-2A by changing up the methodology by which wages are determined. But the rule that came out on H-2A agricultural wages has been blocked by a federal judge in California. And I suspect that when the dust settles, we'll see a reversion to the system that had been in place. And in fact, in some ways, it may actually get worse. Hopefully not. But some of the approaches that the Trump administration took for certain job classifications, such as truck drivers, first line supervisors, potentially mechanics, potentially people doing construction related work, those jobs might end up getting higher wage assignments than what we've traditionally been used to. There was also a program modernization rule in the works, but it did not get published in time. I think even if it came out tomorrow or the next day, it would not be implemented in time, and it would be subject to a broad regulatory freeze that we expect will be President Biden's first official act on the 21st. So on labor, it's just going to be catch as catch can. I do think we may have opportunities in Congress, starting in the House with a bill like the one that passed December a year ago, the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. And then the big question will be, what, if anything, can the Senate be persuaded to do on agricultural labor? I can see how some pieces of the puzzle dealing with, you know, the so-called dreamers, agricultural labor, maybe certain other essential workers like healthcare workers, we may see some Senate willingness to work on some kind of a package deal. But our goal will be to get started very, very quickly in the House of Representatives. On other issues, we're going to be watching very closely tax policy, environmental policy, crop protection, plant health. We've got a lot on our plates, and we'll be leaning in on all of it. I do think with a greater focus on climate change, while there are some perils in that, I think there's also the possibility that we can successfully advance recognition of the positives, the positive impacts, positive contributions that plants and landscapes make with respect to carbon sequestration and climate impact mitigation and whatnot. So it may not all be dark. There may be some room for considerable optimism with climate change coming to the fore. but obviously, as I say, some perils to watch out for as well. Sorry we can't be having this conversation in person with an ability to take questions and so forth, but we're very optimistic that the industry is poised to have a good year despite the challenges, and we continue to look forward to partnering with you to advance the industry and frankly to seize a bright future. So with that, I thank you very, very much.